group, Moses enacts the plague without meeting Pharaoh at all. And that's where Rabbi Yehuda expresses these three stages by grouping these plagues by threes. Before, we said that Rabbi Yehuda was texting, right? Or maybe he was even sending out a Twitter, right? Quick, right? How many lines do you have for Twitter? The truth is, texting has an honorable place in Judaism. That is, you could view texting God as making a connection by means of a short prayer. In the Torah, we find two different forms of prayer. Some are long and complex, like Moses' 40-day prayer, looking for the forgiveness after the sin of the golden calf. He spent a lot of time, 40 days, praying. But other times, we find a brief prayer that sounds like a text between friends. Like Moses, he sent a 5-word prayer for his sister Miriam for her recovery. What were the words? Kel, no, refa, no, lo. Which translates, please, God, heal her now. Right? Short and sweet. The truth is, all of us, with all the jokes that are going around about Twitter and texting, etc., we text God all day long. Without the iPhone. Yeah, you can text God without the iPhone. Yeah, I know it's bad to say that. But the truth is, we text God all the time. Why do we do that? Because we thank God for the good things in life. What do? We make a short blessing before we eat. That's texting God. We spontaneously ask God for his help when a friend may be in need. In the morning, for example, the moment we wake up our eyes, we say a prayer called Moida Ani, which states, thank you, God, for giving me back my life. It's a brief prayer with a lasting impact. Neuroscientists, you heard about those people? Neuroscientists have found that the thoughts going through our mind the first few minutes after we wake up set the tone for the rest of the day. They call this the rudder of the day. Just as a boat's rudder shifted slightly at the beginning of the voyage can utterly change its ultimate destination, so are our first thoughts in the day sets our outlook and our attitude for the rest of the day. The first thing we are to do immediately upon awakening, while still in bed, is to thank God. Appreciate the gift of life. The plumbing is still working, not only in the bathroom. To upload positive thoughts of gratefulness in our mind. So, my friends, let's add God into our contact list. Let him be the first text of the day. Challenge yourself to keep God in the top 5 people that we text all day through acts of kindness and goodness. And there's something else that I learned this year that I want to share with you. You know, Passover and Jewish destiny. It's been noted that more Jewish people observe Passover, the Passover Seder, than any other Jewish ritual. Why is that? Because it's a powerful affirmation of our kinship, of the historical moment that allowed us to become who we are. So with divine aid, we went from slavery to freedom. The Seder permits us to remember and to give thanks. It's our opportunity to reflect upon the miracles of the past. It is our tribute to history. But here's the point. Do you know that the very first Seder of our people makes clear that that's not its major message? Definitely in the Seder we have aspirations and appreciations and gratitude. What do I mean? See, remarkably, are you aware the Jewish people in Egypt were commanded to celebrate the Seder the very night before they left and were delivered? They were not free. Nevertheless, they sat there the night before they left, because they left at midday of the next day. They ate matzah, they had bitter herbs, and they fulfilled all the required rituals. So clearly they were not celebrating an event which had already occurred, but rather demonstrated their faith in God's promise that they were anticipating. So you see, my friends, there's something very deep about the Passover Seder. See, the Passover Seder begins with an emphasis on destiny, not just the history of the past, but the destiny of where we're going forward. So the first Seder took place not after we left, but before we did. It was not a Seder, not of gratitude for what had happened, but the hope for the redemption that was yet to come. So the Passover began with an emphasis on destiny, not history, on the future, not on the past. So it irks me to no end, my friends. As I smile here, people wait through the Seder, but as soon as the meal is over, they're out of there. Forget about it. They open up the door, and instead of Elijah coming in, the guests start to leave. What kind of business is this? Because the whole purpose of the Seder is not just the past and the present, but the focus on the destiny of where we're going, on the future. This is what makes Passover so relevant to generation. Even as we retell the story of old to our children, we make it clear that the purpose is meant to resonate with us as a harbinger of hope. As we say, just as Almighty did then, God will take us out from this exile too. It is the only certainty of history. God always comes to our aid. God can be depended upon. Unlike any other temporary political alliances or allegiances, history has a preordained plan, an order, and it's expressed in the Hebrew by the word Seder. So, Seder. If we really are there at the Seder, as we say, and we invite ourselves to be there in full gala, then we must appreciate that it's not only a Seder in terms of what we do that night, but it's also recognizing there's a preordained plan of where we've come, where we are today, and where we're heading. The story of our redemption from Egypt is but a prequel, just a preparation to the final redemption coming very speedily. So certain as we are for this, in the fact that we have our children there, we make sure that we are not only the beneficiaries of what God has given to us, but how do we express that? By opening up the door for Elijah at every Seder. Why? To welcome in the prophet who has been given the assignment to announce the coming of Mashiach. And by eating matzah at the Seder, we make a stunning declaration about the way we see this come to pass. How? It's counter, in a certain sense, it's counterintuitive. It goes against the common proverbial assumption that history doesn't change overnight. But it is the method of historic change. That's how Hashem took us out of Egypt and incorporated that into the symbol of the Passover holiday. How do we see this? Redemption, as illustrated by the matzah, is made quickly, speedily, unexpectedly. They didn't have enough time to let it bread rise. Suddenly, in the blink of an eye, the slaves were free. You see, that's what we're talking about. That's the haste. That's the assurity that we have. And we remind ourselves of the importance of haste. And this is very fascinating. And I looked forward to sharing this with you, this new insight that I learned. You know, how are you going to be dressed when you go to the Seder? Kim, are you preparing yourself in some formal way? I mean, did you try your best? Did you come in Levi jeans? And how do you plan to? Do you come in any particular outfit? I mean, you're going to dress up like Pharaoh or something?
I don't think I need to dress up.
Okay.
That dressing up, isn't that the wrong holiday? Didn't we already pass that holiday where that's dressing up?
That's the Purim when we dress up in costume. But when you come to the Seder, are you going to plan to put on something holiday?
Yeah, something special, sure.
Okay. So I want to share with everybody today how our ancestors dressed for the Seder they had before they left Egypt. Do you hear what I'm talking about? Our ancestors were told at the very first Seder before they left Egypt, the Torah tells us, obviously, Kim, obviously we dress holiday-like, but there's no real uniform. You know, you come the way you're comfortable. Guess what? The very first Seder, the Torah tells us that we had to sit with our loins girded, shoes on our feet, and with traveling sticks in your hand. You ever had to sit there and ate a piece of matzah holding a walking stick with your loins girded and wearing shoes? How many people take off their shoes at the Seder? Right, of course, that's why we have smelling salt. Never mind. But what's going on over here? They had to sit at the Seder table, ready to begin a journey. Only faith that God would fulfill His promise made it possible for them not only to believe that after 210 years of bitter oppression, their salvation was near, and that they were ready to go. They were ready. They actually dressed with that. Not only did they eat haste-made food, but they also had to dress in that way, ready to. Can you imagine coming to the Seder, wearing your overcoat, and with a walking stick in your hand, and that's it? You see, matzah demonstrated the speed of divine intervention. Human progress can take centuries. The matzah demonstrates that the speed of God's intervention is in 1 second. And that's what we learn. So how's that also expressed? Expressed in how we dress. So we dress our finest. But Jewish law tells us that we were not at that Seder to dress that way. Why is that? Because the first Seder was laying the foundation of this concept. On the eve of us leaving, we were commanded to take a lamb, place its blood on the lintel, the doorposts, each roasted piece of meat together with matzah and bitter herbs. And how shall you eat it? With your waist belted, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and that's how you should eat it, in a hurry. Wow. And I want to thank everybody for their comments. Obviously, we talk about 210 years in Egypt, because even though God did say we're going to be there for 400, we did some creative analysis, and we count that from the time this was told to us. So from the time Abraham was told we would be in exile, which included from the time of the birth of Isaac, until we left, was 400 years. But the actual being in Egypt, with all of its problems, was the last 210 years. But let's go through this quickly before we end. What's the significance of wearing shoes, carrying our staff, and be dressed? The answer is, it's not just simply, it was telling us something deeper. See, the belt organizes our clothing, wraps around our waist. It supports the entire body. Our first priority is to be solid ourselves, to ensure that we're well informed and we live and we know what's all about, and to be a knowledgeable person. Balance and cohesion are central to a healthy Jewish living. So that first part is when they left Egypt, you have your belt on. You're solid. You're founded. You're standing strong. You're supported with your knowledge, with your observance. Shoes, on the other hand, is how we interact with the immediate world. We can go out into the street without injuring ourselves from the various hazards that abound on the ground. So Judaism is not just reserved for the privacy of our homes and our religious comfort of our synagogues, but we have to be able to interact with the world. So the message that night was, not only do you have to yourself be your loins girded, you have to have your belt on, so to speak. You are strong, but you also have to walk out of your typical environment and have an impact on the world. And that's what the shoes are all about. And finally, there's aspects of being able to reach further than yourself. The role of every one of us is to be a light, to bring the message of haste, of excitement, of hope, appreciation, of gratitude of Pesach. Therefore, when they sat down at the Seder table, not only were they strong themselves, personally, with their waist, their belts on, so to speak, the loins that were girded. Not only were they ready with their shoes to be able to make the journey beyond themselves, but they also had a walking stick. Why is that? Because sometimes there are places you can reach far away that are beyond where you can walk to. How would that be in our mind? We have to have in mind the importance of the imprint on the global sense, inspiring people we never meet in a lifetime. And every one of us can do this. And today it's very simple. What is our walking stick today? How can we be able to reach so many people so quickly? Through modern technology. Using social media to broadcast a Jewish message. You never know who is reading the post, who's listening, and the effect that you can have. That's the important things. These are the three components of our attitude of freedom. Strengthen your own personal observance. Inspire your immediate surroundings with your shoes on, so to speak, and take that message to the world. So, dear friends, don't forget, make sure your Seder is all prepared. Make sure to read up on the Agada. And once again, thank you so much for all of us listening, all of us watching on Facebook Live. I'm now waving to everybody out there. Thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week, and Chag Kosher v'Sameach. Sei gesund.